Hey everybody, this is Sheets, and boy, it feels like quite a while since I've done a Slate preview. I've been away and all this stuff, but I'm going to be doing it solo today, and I'm going to do a combination of game by game and kind of a slate breakdown from the top-down perspective, and we're just going to get it going. I'm also going to probably show you some test builds that I made, just to kind of illustrate a couple of things. So I'm going to be going back and forth, I guess, between my, referencing my my models and my projections, which are available for premium subscribers on TrueDFS.com. That was, by the way, my attempt at being a salesman. Hopefully, it didn't fail all too miserably. And I'm going to be doing my test builds using SaberSim, which you can access with the affiliate code TrueDFS. That was another one. There's another you have salesmanship there. Is that any good? Probably not. So let's get back to the actual slate. And right off the bat, you have your first decision that you're really going to have to make, and that is going to be what to do with Garrett Cole. Because from a projection standpoint, he really lays over the field. He rates as my top value by very, very sizable amount. And he's going to be owned accordingly. Part of the reason his projections are so high is he already has a very good K percentage, and he's also has a very easy matchup against the Angels. So he's going to project really well, and he's going to be owned through the roof. So the question is, what do you do with him? He is coming off the COVID, and depending on who you ask and what your situation was, COVID could be a beast, and as a matter of fact, they even say that they could have a more limited workload, but then it says shouldn't face significant limitations. For me, again, I'm probably inclined to just fade it. That's what I'm probably going to end up doing. From a numbers perspective, that's probably pretty unwise. If he does pitch along the lines of his projections, he's going to be someone that you need, and he's got significant upside from that into the 30s with respect to what he can put up there. And as we'll go through, the pitching is not all that terrific. So if he has a 30 up on his score sheet, you're really going to need that. But the fact that he's going to be 65 maybe % owned, plus COVID, plus some uncertainty along the lines of COVID uncertainty, I guess. I don't think I'm going to prioritize him. Now, when I do my test builds, you're going to see that he probably is going to show up in almost every lineup. But yes, there is something that cannot be accounted for on a spreadsheet. And one of them is this type of thing, the impact that coming back off of COVID could have. And for me, what kind of tips the scales is the fact that he's going to be that highly owned. So he was going to be low owned, and that was my risk, my COVID risk. I'd probably take it, but because he's going to be high owned, I don't think I'm going to do it. That's then again, my takes in pitching have not been exactly spot on in the last couple of weeks. My takes that kind of deviated from the projections. You remember, like last week, despite the fact that Giolito rated really strong, I had this convoluted discussion with myself about why he was finished and was going to bust. And I think he pitched 8 scoreless innings or something like that. So maybe I shouldn't be deviating from my numbers. But given the fact that he's going to be high owned, I'm probably going to avoid it. When it comes to the hitting in this game, I don't have either the Yankees or the Angels rating in my top set of stacks. I mean, I actually have 5 or so stacks that I like, more than the rest. And we're going to get to those when we get to them. And the Yankees and the Angels are not. Okay, let's move ahead to another interesting option, and that's Chicago at Cincinnati. I don't know where this happened, but the Cubs just, from trading all their players away, I guess. I mean, they've become a team that you're supposed to basically screen pitchers against nowadays. And this is no different. I mean, Wade Miley projects to be one of the okay SP2s. I mean, he's not the best SP2 according to the numbers, but he's probably close to the second best. Maybe he is. I actually have him rated as the second best SP2. So I do have him about 18% or so owned as of now. So it's not going to be anything earth-shattering. But yeah, I mean, he's certainly a very viable option. I didn't get to any of this Jay Steele in any of my numbers, and when it came to the hitting, these Reds mean business. They always seem to just put up runs. Now, with that said, I don't know why, but today I really don't have them rated as a top option for me. So take that for what it is. I'm probably going to be avoiding Cincinnati today, even though they just do nothing but have Joey Votto hit home runs. I did feel I could mention there's one very one-off that stands out in this game, and that's actually from the Cubs side. You have Frank Schwindel, who is showing up as a good value at 2K at first base. That's pretty much about it. All I have from this game. None of it really fits into my plans here. So Atlanta and Miami. This is actually rating as the top SP2. When I say SP2, the top cheaper pitcher. Let's put it that way. I mean, you could play two top pitchers, and one would be your SP2. But Touki Toussaint is rating as the best play of the cheaper options of the sub 10Ks. And by a decent amount. All this I'm about to say is factored into the projections already, but Miami is a good team to target. Miami is a good stadium to target, and Toussaint has been pitching. He's had some good games, some bad games since he's been back, but overall, I think it's a very, very strong play on a slate which is pretty bereft of pitching. So, I do like that. And I did not get to any of the hitting in this game with respect to my top stacks. And even looking at the one-offs, I don't see much either. So this is probably a game with respect to the hitting I'm going to be fading. But Toussaint is certainly a key piece of any pitcher's pool worth mentioning. Okay. Well, this is somewhat interesting. I see. When I first looked at the Baltimore-Tampa game, it looked like a cross-off for me. I didn't get to any of this pitching. And when I rated these guys by hitting, I have Tampa really not rating that high, honestly. Maybe like 7th on a value scale, and maybe 5th on a raw point scale, which seems very bizarre, right? Because we're used to playing everybody against Matt Harvey. Maybe because Harvey has been better. He's got 3 out of his last 5 have been really, really good starts here. At very, very cheap price tags. Now, according to my numbers, I don't have any interest in Harvey, at least at first look. But there's certainly no disputing that in general, he has been paying off his price tag. So that's definitely something to consider. But I'm probably not going to get to it. And again, Tampa, I'm not getting there. But again, where you can profit from that is if people do just pound on Tampa again because they go back to targeting Matt Harvey. They could be good fades. I will say that probably the best value overall is Kevin Kiermaier from this game at 2K. And interestingly, let me take a look. Why am I not getting to too much Baltimore? Because I always seem to get to Baltimore. But you know what? I guess it's this Tampa bullpen, and Fleming has been pretty good, I suppose. Fleming actually, as a long reliever, I wonder if he's in play at 6,500. I don't know. Maybe. But again, these long relievers, I mean, look, you can get the win, maybe 4 or 5 innings. Is that going to be enough? Maybe. 17 points. Is that good? Could be. But he's not a prime option for me, so this game is not that intriguing. I would say Tampa on the hitting side would be the one place I would go. But again, because it's Matt Harvey, I think they're going to probably be a little higher owned, even than I'm seeing right off the bat. All right, so Oakland White Sox, this to me is, from a pitching perspective, one of the very natural pivots to Garrett Cole. Like if you want to fade Cole and still pay up for pitching, you could try to play Frankie Montas. Now, it comes with a great amount of risk, both quantitatively and qualitatively. He certainly does not project as to be as good as Cole, not even by a long shot. He also does not project to be as good as Kevin Gausman, who we'll get to as well. But because, I feel he's going to be lower owned. I mean, right now I'm looking at 20% ownership. I can't believe that would be the case. I would honestly believe that Cole and Toussaint would soak up just a carload of the ownership, and then Gausman and Miley and would take on the rest. But Montas at 20%, I definitely wouldn't do that. So I'm going to look at the ownership projections as we get closer. Like, I was hoping that I could make a case for Montas at like 5% ownership, but I guess people are a little smarter than that. But how smart are they? I mean, like the White Sox, as opposed to, say, the Angels, or we'll get to the Mets a little bit later. The White Sox are a tough out. So I thought this would take on a little more risk to the field than I first thought. That I'm seeing, and I'm seeing 20% ownership, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But so if he is 20% owned, I'm probably not going to play him. If he's less than 10, I got a shot. Dallas Keuchel, I'm not playing. He doesn't project well. He just doesn't have a lot of upside. And with respect to the hitting, I'm not getting too much either when it comes to either the White Sox or the A's. Let's see if I can just. If I try to force a call there, I mean, I guess Oakland would be my favorite of the two, but there's really no need for me to get there. Let me take a look at some one-offs real quick. No, not really. I mean, Yan Gomes, 2,800 catcher. That's about the best I can give you from this game. All right, so Houston against KC. Now, this is an early look, and I just want to make sure that I have these guys projected, because I would have expected Odorizzi to show up a little bit more, but he's just not. He's not showing up to be that great of a play. And I don't know, maybe he's one of those guys that just doesn't project well, that has upside. Because it seems instinctively, right, that Odorizzi would be a good play. Let me just look really quick. Let me see if maybe I'm missing something, which I don't think that I am. Hold on a second. So Jake Odorizzi, I like to say that I'm missing something, but no, he's just it's not projecting all that great. What can I tell you? And when it comes to Kansas City, I'm not getting to Hernandez against Houston. Part of the reason is that Houston is showing up by all metrics as the best hitting stack of the day. Whether you rate these by value or by raw points, Houston is rating to be the top stack. So the guys that I am going to be highlighting here. Let's start with your Alvarez at 4,400. That's, probably he rates well both raw points and value. Brantley as well rates well raw points and value. Diaz, Myers, and McCormick rate well with respect to value, whereas opposed Altuve, Correa, and Gurriel rate well with respect to raw stack. So depending on how you want to allocate your salary, would be where I would select the next three. But I think that Alvarez and Brantley would be the core, right, of any Houston stack. See Kansas City. Kansas City, they're just barely on the outside looking in to the top options over here. If you did want to play them, it would be Benintendi, O'Hearn, Rivera, Santana, Dozier, Witt. And again, it depends on how many lineups you're going to play. I do see that they're going to be low owned, which helps. So Houston right now rates to be clearly the best option, and I presume they're going to be owned as a result. But with any luck, that San Diego, Colorado game will soak up a lot of the ownership, and maybe Houston will be, I won't say overlooked, but maybe it won't be quite as chalky. All right, Cleveland, Minnesota. I don't have much of anything from this game. Like I'm not getting any Quantrill even as a punt. I'm not getting to Griffin Jacks even as a punt. And I'm looking through, yeah, so Minnesota is actually rating to be a really good value stack. And that would be guys like Larnach, Rooker, Donaldson, Polanco, Arias. And then if you wanted to fill it in with, some higher upside ideas, pause for a second. Sorry about that. Yeah, so if you wanted to fill it in with more upside guys, Kepler, Donaldson, well, I already mentioned Donaldson and Polanco, so Kepler and Garver would be the more expensive guys to throw in there. So I do like Minnesota. They rate really well value-wise. The raw points, they don't really rate all that well. But if you want to double pay up for pitching, Minnesota could be an interesting team to use. Cleveland, let me take a look. Yeah, Cleveland as well. Cleveland is also rating to be a very similar good value stack. And the guys that you want to highlight from there, from a value perspective, would be, well, Ramirez would actually rate well as both value and raw points, which is something you really want to look for. Premio Reyes, likewise. And then you have Miles Straw. Let's say you didn't want to play Brantley. Miles Straw, 2,500, and then Bradley Zimmer and Mercado, but Zimmer would be another really good one. 2,400 outfielder. So I think Cleveland's a really good, good team to use as well if you can double pay up for pitching. Let me look at some one-offs here, see if I can't identify anybody aside from the people that I had mentioned. Nope, that's pretty much it. Miles Straw, I already said. Okay, San Diego, Colorado. This is the Coors game, and naturally both teams are going to be in play. I don't like either of the pitching. Let's take a look at the hitting here. Let's see what we have. I mean, I personally don't have, either of these teams as top options from a value perspective. I mean, I have them in the top 5, but I don't have either of them as high as Houston. And I don't have any of them higher than Minnesota or Cleveland. Now, when it comes to raw points, though, I have these guys at the top 2. So, yep, I mean, they definitely rate to be to score a lot of runs and score a lot of fantasy points, and they're going to be highly owned. So, as usual, whether you play these guys depends upon the rest of your attack, right? The rest of your build. Like if you're going to play Cole, you just don't want to play San Diego or Colorado. You're just not getting any leverage at all. It's just not going to work. You need to be absolutely perfect in your lineups to do well, and that's just not something that you can. That's just not the way to win GPPs. This is very difficult to do. So if you would fade Cole, if you did something else, then yeah, then I think that you could play San Diego and Colorado and be different enough, just because of all the ownerships Cole is going to generate. But the usual suspects with respect to these hitters, for Colorado, you have Connor Joe, C.J. Cron, Brendan Rodgers, Charlie Blackmon, and Trevor Story. And then on the San Diego side, you have Tatis, Machado, Frazier, Grisham, and Hosmer, and Frazier. I said that already, sorry. And Pham. So those 6 will, make up your pool of what 5 to choose from if you do in fact go for a 5-man stack, which I do think that on today's slate you're going to want to do. I think that one of those games is going to blow up between the Houston game, San Diego, Minnesota game, Cleveland, Minnesota. I mean the San Diego, Colorado, and Cleveland, Minnesota. I think something blows up. So I do think this is a 5-man stack type of slate. Anyway, nothing particularly fancy there. Chalky, pop, rating well, and for good reason. All right, Mets San Francisco. So this is the other main SP1 option, and that would be Kevin Gausman, who, as I mentioned, he does rate significantly lower than Garrett Cole, but he's also going to rate as probably half the ownership. But half is not exactly, a bargain either. In other words, like if Garrett Cole's 65% owned, and you're going to probably get Gausman at 32 or something like that. It's not like he's going to be unowned. He's certainly probably the next best option, so people are naturally going to go there. That's why the Montas thing I thought was going to be particularly sneaky. I thought it was going to be Montas would be the pivot off the Gausman pivot, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Gausman will be the same owned as Montas, in which case Gausman would be a much stronger play. The Mets matchup is fine. Not great, not terrible, and that's why he's projecting to be a really, really good play, but not like a standout. So for me, again, like on the numbers, it would be Cole and Toussaint. If I wanted to fade Cole, sort of, then I would make it Toussaint Gausman. Then if you really wanted to get cute, you could play, Gausman Montas, like I said. That is one way to, get yourself access to the San Diego and Colorado. I don't mean get access from a price perspective, because you could probably get to them regardless, but get to them from an ownership perspective. So yeah, Gausman I like. I don't really like Rich Hill. When it comes to the hitting over here, I'm not really getting to much of anything. I'm not getting to the Mets. I would like to think San Francisco would be right on my list here. Let me just take a look real quick. They usually show up like right underneath. Yeah, they're just right on the outside looking in. I have them rated a little bit better than Kansas City, for example, but a little less than the top options from a value perspective. But I think that they're in play. I would play them. That's the best I could describe it. And the guys I would play would be Chris Bryant, Buster Posey, Austin Slater. Those would be the top ones. And then there's also Darren Roof, Brandon Crawford, Solano. Pretty much all those guys are in play. And I do think San Francisco is somewhat in play as far as that goes. I'm certainly not going to tell you to avoid the Mets completely, if you want to get some leverage. Except nobody rates to be that strong of a play, honestly. So I'm going to be off of that. Then if you didn't like any of that, you have Pittsburgh and LA. And I don't have any of the pitchers here in play. I don't want to play anybody against the Dodgers, honestly. And the Dodgers, it's a bullpen game, so I'm not really going to be playing that. With respect to the hitting, though, I find this an intriguing spot. First of all, the Dodgers, I don't have them ranked particularly well from a value perspective, but I never do. With respect to their raw points projection, I have them rated about third. So there's just above Houston with respect to raw points. So you could play this. I mean, you could play, and I'll give you like the usual suspects would be Turner, Pollock, Seager, Muncy, Turner, Muncy, Pollock, Seager. Turner, Muncy, Pollock, Seager, Turner. Sorry. No, Turner, Muncy, both Turners. That's why I got confused. So both Turners, Muncy, Pollock, and Seager. Those would be the top. Those would be the options. And I'll probably force a little of that in. The team that's also showing up as a decent value is on the Pittsburgh side. Just, I have them just below, Cleveland, Minnesota. It's really just, you're just not going to make any money with with a full Pittsburgh stack here, I don't think. I think the Dodgers, this being a bullpen game, I think they'll combine to hold Pittsburgh down enough, right? You'd like to think so. But if you did want to screw around, you could play Ben Gamel. You could play. Let's take a look at these guys. Brian, I mean, everybody's under 4K, like the whole team, and a lot of them are under 3K. So you could use these guys to kind of fill in some of your lineups here if you want. Stallings, Brian Hayes, Brian Reynolds, Gamel, Polanco. But as you see, I mean, like let's for example, I'll put these guys in just to show you what this looks like. Let's say you played them all, like Hayes, Reynolds, Stallings, Polanco, and then Polanco's a flat 2K, and then Gamel, like you almost can't even fill out your salary, right? I mean, let's just see. Let's just say you're going to play, for example, Cole and Gausman. I mean, you could still play whoever you wanted in that Padre game. You know what I mean? So it does. If you can do this, right? And God forbid Pittsburgh goes off. I mean, you're gonna be in tremendous shape here. But they just don't have a lot of power, Pittsburgh. And with the exception of Brian Reynolds, Brian Hayes is okay. I wouldn't go crazy with a 5-man. And every time I think about the Stallings hits a home run, maybe this isn't the worst idea in the world. Anyway, they do rate to be very, very good values. So I do think this game can be somewhat sneaky on both sides, actually. And maybe, I don't know, maybe you get some good weather in LA and the game goes off somehow. It's possible. So with all that said, you would think that I would get to a lot of Houston if I ran test builds, and that's kind of exactly what happened. So like in my first test build, for example, like even though I set it to do some sort of ownership fade, I still got to, as you would see, like almost 100% Cole. Cole Toussaint, Cole Gausman. I didn't get to any of the Montas pivot, right? And with the stacks, I got to like all this Houston. I mean, 95% Houston. And of my 5-man stacks, almost all of them were Houston. And as you might imagine, what that means is that the types of Houston stacks I got to were going to be stuff like, Brantley, McCormick, Myers, Maldonado. So you don't really get like the Altuves in here, right? Although here's an Altuve one, like this one, you actually can get an Altuve, Correa, Alvarez. You can get anything you want because you get Miguel Sano at 3,200. I didn't even realize that was the case. So this is a slate where you could pay up for all this pitching if you want. The only question is how chalky does your hitting end up as a result of that? So maybe that's the right thing to do. Maybe you're supposed to just play Cole and Gausman. But if you want to fade Cole for ownership reasons, maybe what you're supposed to do is instead of playing Gausman Toussaint, you're supposed to play just Gausman Montas. And look at me, I'm just trying to cram in Montas again for some reason. I don't know, maybe that's dumb. But in any case, that is the outlook with respect to DraftKings. If you made it this far, I'll just give you a real quick overview of FanDuel. FanDuel's very similar. Cole and Toussaint rated to be the strongest plays over there. And then Gausman and Miley. Oh, Miley, that's something you could do. Like you play Miley instead of Toussaint if you want to do that on DraftKings. Sorry about that. And then with respect to stacks over there, I mean, you could, as usual, you could play kind of wherever you want. So you're getting San Diego, Colorado, Houston. Let me just see. Dodgers, you know, San Diego, Colorado, Dodgers, Houston, Tampa, Yankees, teams like that. You don't really need to pay down for hitting over there. But that's pretty much it. I'm going to be live either with Bobby or without a little bit later, and hopefully that was somewhat helpful.